crimes. It's a callous person that commits this awful act all the time. But have you ever considered how they would be feeling following their conviction for the murder? Here are a few examples of the defendant collapsing in response to the verdict. Beginning with Diana Lovejoy. Severe prison terms were given to a Carlsbad woman and her gun instructor, for what the authorities claimed was a failed attempt to assassinate the lady's divorced husband, who was shot but survived. Diana Lovejoy was found guilty of conspiracy to commit murder and attempted murder. And Superior Court Judge Szymon Kalinowski sentenced her to 26 years to life in prison. The incident occurred in September 2016, as Lovejoy and Mulvihill were coming to an end of their prolonged custody dispute over their son and messy divorce. Jody Breton, a deputy district attorney, claimed that Lovejoy tricked McDavid into shooting by fabricating stories of abuse. Each defendant denied the existence of a murder-for-hire scheme on Wednesday, during their sentencing hearing. Each of them dissected the evidence against them, and claimed that the trial testimony against them had been false. But then later you can see after hearing the verdict, Lovejoy collapses.
Find the defendant, Weldon K. McDavid, guilty of the crime of conspiracy to commit murder.
Next up is Christine Ricky. According to reports, a Boston firefighter's wife stabbed him to death on Thursday in his Marshfield, Massachusetts home. Christine Ricky, 46, was detained by investigators with the Massachusetts State Police on Thursday and was given a murder charge. On Friday, when the accusation was read in Plymouth District Court, Ricky was hunching over and shaky. She also had problems standing. She had a medical emergency just after her arraignment started, requiring the courtroom to be evacuated.
We have Christine Ricky.
As murder suspect Christine Ritchie is brought into a Plymouth courtroom, her cuffed hands behind her back were shaking. The 46-year-old Marshfield woman hunched over, appearing distraught as charges were read.
You are charged with murder.
Soon Ritchie collapses, the arraignment is stopped, and the courtroom cleared. First responders arrived and transported her to the hospital.
Next up, Robert G. We are in Muskegon, Michigan for Robert G's trial. The altercation outside this bar led to the 31-year-old being charged with a number of offenses, including murder. The CCTV video shows a quick glimpse of G's Paul stealing a car earlier from the bar's parking lot. Jack Ramo, 26, spotted his brother's car being taken outside, so he got on his motorbike and chased the carjacker. Ramo was unaware that Robert G's automobile was pursuing him as well. A few streets away from the pub, G allegedly leant out the moving car window and fired remote into the rear, prompting him to smash his motorbike into a house owner's yard. Judge Timothy Hicks heard eyewitness testimony from other passengers in the car during the 3-day bench trial, with G claiming to have shot remote in the back. The prosecution contends that G's conduct that night were deliberate. Judge Hicks has enough information to convict him of degree murder. The courtroom erupts about what caused the outburst from the gallery before Judge Hicks has finished speaking. Beginning with the moment G first appeared woozy and rested his head on the table, his family members believe he is experiencing a medical issue and could faint in his chair, as the deputy checks on G, who appears responsive. A little while later, some of his family members are escorted out of the courtroom. Judge Hicks then tries to resume the proceedings, but the yelling outside the courtroom again interrupts him. The situation finally calms down just in time for the defendant to pass out on his chair, calming the family's fears. Robert G would eventually be sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole for the murder of Jake Ramo. He would return to court in his own right.
The people of the state of Michigan have proven each of these counts.
First up, we're in Muskegon, Michigan for the trial of Robert G. The courtroom erupts. What caused the outburst from the gallery? started when G first appeared woozy and rests his head on the table. Members of his family believe he's having a medical issue and could faint in his chair.
Up next, James Rhodes. Jim Rhodes, 25, changed his plea from not guilty to guilty on 4 charges in the murder of Shelby Farah, 20, after first entering a not guilty plea. His revised plea was a condition of an agreement with Melissa Nilsson, the state's attorney, to commute the death penalty. Instead, he will receive a life sentence without the possibility of parole. As you can see, after hurting the victim's mother, he passes out. On July 20, 2013, a surveillance camera captured Farah emptying the register before Rhodes shot her many times and fled. By entering a guilty plea, Rhodes also forfeits his right to an attorney, a trial in the matter, the opportunity to appeal, and the right to remain silent. He consented to the punishment. Well, that was an incredibly unexpected response. After hearing it, these people were in complete shock, or may not have been able to realize what they had just done. Which response, in your opinion, was the most sincere? Tell us in the comments.
I was so angry, and I want you to know I am forgiving you. And I pray to God that you ask for God to forgive you. And nobody told me I had to forgive you. I was so angry I couldn't focus. I kept trying to figure out how to take you out myself in the courtroom.